why are we so bad at talking with our children about skin tone and race? I mean, as a society, we're terrible at it, right? My African-American nanny friend, when she was asked by the white child in her charge why she was brown and he wasn't, she had no idea what to say. Not a clue. So she said, "It's because I drank more chocolate milk than you." Yeah. Can you imagine this kid trying to figure out if he wants to eliminate chocolate milk from his diet or maybe consume it in excess? I don't know, depending on his aspirations in life, I don't know. And then a white grandmother told me that when her grandchildren ask why children have, or why people have different skin tones, she told them that God baked us all in the oven together and left black people in too long. Yep, she was so proud of herself. And in general, when kids ask questions about skin tone and race, we relegate to abstractions like, people are all the same. We are all equal. We only see people. We don't see color. But children do see color. Here's what we know. By 6 months, babies notice differences. And then by the age of 3, toddlers are categorizing and sorting, and based on phenotypical differences. That's what we call race and gender. It's normal to categorize and sort. But we live in a hyper-racialized society where systems and cultural norms have been established based on skin tone and race categories and continue to have an impact on and narrate our lives. And so children, being the sponges that they are soaking up all the racial messaging of our hyper-racialized society, which consistently places white people at the top of the racial hierarchy and devalues everyone else. So by the age of 7, children can accurately reflect social status, bias, and will make decisions based on who they perceive as having more power or privilege. And even when they're told that children or people are all the same, white children continue to demonstrate stronger racial bias than children of other groups. So avoiding conversations about skin tone and race is not protecting our children from the hyper-racialized society that they will inherit. In fact, our silence is allowing them to be socialized and conditioned by it. In other words, they will perpetuate the racial status quo. I recall watching an interview of a white mom whose white son, a police officer, shot an unarmed black man in his back as that black man ran away from him. Now, as she was being interviewed, I leaned in, because as the daughter of a police officer, I figured she wanted me to connect with her, to empathize with his role as a police officer. But instead, she seemed to focus more on how she had raised him. She kept saying, "I don't know what happened. He was a good boy. He wasn't raised racist. He was a good boy." Now, as a mom, my heart broke for her, because I too want to raise good children, but virtue does not dissuade racial socialization. Being good is not good enough to deter and resist all the racial messaging that our children receive from a number of socializing agents like television, their school curriculum, church, their home, and society in general. And don't you agree that it's irresponsible of us to pretend that our children are growing up in a rational, just, civil, and peaceful world? I mean, isn't that why we have these complicated conversations with them about, gender equality. We want our girls to know that they can do anything. Or we have the awkward conversation about, sex. We talk about that because we don't want them to be limited or unprepared. We want our children to be informed and conscious, right? And empowered and equipped to make the best decisions. But when it comes to race, R-A-C-E, that dirty four-letter word, we lose our footing. We choke. We go silent. And some of us even go colorblind, as if the best way to prepare our children to overcome the racially unjust society in which they're being socialized is to pretend that it's not happening. Now, this approach, this colorblind approach, has robbed us of a framework, language, and power to actually create through our children the just society that we long for. So, what if we stopped undermining their potential with anecdotes and silence and color shaming and started equipping our children to be the substance of the just society that we long for? I want you to meet my family. Yeah, aren't they lovely? Affectionately known as the Berry Patch. Now, before my husband and I had children, we knew that if we did not shape their consciousness around issues of race, then our hyper-racialized society would do it for us through irresponsible media representation, uninformed opinions spewed from platforms with divisive agendas, and the underrepresentation of people of color in American history lessons. And we did not want that. Now, when our first child was only 4 years old, she started to articulate our different skin tones as hues of brown. She'd say, "Daddy is light brown, and Mommy is dark brown, and I am medium brown." Smart girl. And so we didn't shut her down. We embraced her color-conscious references, and then we continued to normalize conscious conversations about melanin, ancestry, the construction of race, because y'all know it's made up, right? The construction of race and racial inequality. So you see, normalizing conscious conversations about skin tone and race does not create racial tension or racism. In fact, the opposite happens. Informed and responsible engagement empowers our children to be conscious and courageous and creative. I mean, don't we want our children to be conscious? Consciousness allows them to make connections in a way that colorblindness does not. For example, our white friend's daughter read that African American children drown at 5 times the rate than that of white children. She wanted to know why. Now, her mom didn't just let her think that a whole ethnic group of children were inferior swimmers. No, she told her the racial history of American public pools. Google it. So her daughter could make the connections conscious. And don't we want our children to be courageous, to courageously analyze and disrupt the racial status quo? Our white friends, 17-year-old high-ranking Boy Scout, is appalled at the lack of ethnic and social economic diversity in the Scouts. So at 17 years old, he is putting together a plan to present to the council on how to change that. Yeah, courageous. And don't we want our children to be creative, to create and do what we haven't been able to do? When our first child was in kindergarten, 5 years old, she came home and told me something that really hurt my feelings. For her, she said, "Mom, a girl in my class who is your skin tone said that she was only going to hug the people in our class with her skin tone. Nobody else could get a hug." Okay, so you mothers out there know that the mama bear rose up in me, and I started formulating a plan about how I was going to go to the school and teach the school and talk to the teacher and talk to the parent of that little girl and talk to that little girl. I mean, I was brewing up some stuff. And then my brainstorm was interrupted. I was interrupted by her sweet little kindergarten voice. She said, "But I told her that if you only hug the people with your skin tone, look at all the other wonderful hugs you're gonna miss out on." I know, right? You see, at 5 years old, she was able to touch her classmates' sensibility. Now, I wanted to touch something else. So you see, getting good at talking about skin tone and race with our children is good for our future. And don't worry, our children can handle it. They're braver than we are. Their egos are not too big to try new things. They are not full of fear. They're full of wonder, and they're extremely caring. And yeah, it's irresponsible of us to undermine their potential and their creativity and their capacity. Let our children be the substance of our relentless hope, the substance of the future we long for. If we don't keep them in the dark, our children will light up the world.